What are you doing? We got a show to do.
Do you have a brain? Welcome to Rant Rave, the show that takes seemingly random topics and does the unthinkable to them. I am your host, Don Michaels. When I was in school, we learned how to read, how to do math, and how to socially interact. We were encouraged to reach for the stars, learn about history and science, so that one day we can make a difference. Today, education is more about taking a test and being a statistic. It's not about going back to the way it was, because kids today learn differently, but a change is needed. On today's show, we have elementary school teacher Janice. Let's go get into it. Now we're into it. Hi, Janice. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Don.
Good. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. So, you're an elementary school teacher.
I am.
You are. So that's great. I'd really like to get into a little bit more about who you are so people know who we're talking with here.
Okay.
If you don't mind sharing your background a little bit.
Not at all. I have been an elementary school teacher this is my 17th year. I absolutely love it. I went to college at Cleveland State, and my original major was child psychology. I've always wanted to help children, so I thought, after I got to statistics, thought there's no way I'm going to finish this class. So I did change my major to elementary education, and I fell in love. Getting to get into the classrooms and learning about the kids was something I found was definitely my passion. And I focused on wanting to teach in an inner city because I thought that's where I would have the most impact and I could really make a difference. And I taught in Cleveland schools for about 6.5 years and then was laid off back in 2004. They had a huge round of layoffs, and then I took a job out in another urban district in the Lake County area, and I've been there for the past 10 years and love it.
So you truly do love it, huh?
I absolutely do. You know, actually our librarian at school said to me about a week or two ago, said, you might be one of the only people that I know that wakes up happy and excited to come to their job every day. And even with all the changes in education and how, difficult it's been with testing and things, I really do. Because every day there's something new. I'm challenged every day by the kids or what is thrown at me curriculum-wise. I get to watch children who didn't know how to read one day come up the next day and say, I got this word. And the pure joy and excitement in their eyes is just, it's amazing.
I wish more teachers were like that. I mean, when I was going to school, what do you want to do? I mean, the teachers just didn't seem like they even wanted to be there. I wish we had more teachers like her.
Absolutely.
I might have learned something then.
Right.
Right. They, that's a big blessing that you're able to go to work and actually enjoy it. So many people go through life not enjoying their career or what they do. And
right.
For you to be able to do that is a great impact on yourself and your family and society in itself.
It definitely is.
And she'll put more energy into it too.
Right.
Like she was saying,
she's passionate about it.
One day
right.
a student couldn't read. Now the child can read. That'd make me feel awesome.
Yeah. But there's been so much that has had to evolve over the 17 years. My first year of teaching was completely different than what I'm doing now. And, I'm not one that will continually just rehash the same lesson plan year after year. I do different lessons for things because our kids change. We didn't have Chromebooks and individual iPads for every kid where we're, in my school district from grades 3 through 12, they're 1-to-1 with Chromebooks. Mm-hmm. So they have to know all this testing that the kids are doing now. It is all done on a computer. So my children in second grade, even in kindergarten, but they have to know how to use a mouse. They have to know how to type on a keyboard. So there's been a lot of change that I've seen over the years.
But I don't think that, from the kids I've seen, they're like one with electronics. They seem to pick it up, and it concerns me because some of them don't even know how to write. They speak to the little microphone on the tab.
Right.
They type it in. It's like I heard cursive's not even being taught anymore.
We don't really actually have a dedicated time that we teach handwriting. My first few years I did, and I sneak it in because I do. I think it's still a valuable thing. People have to read what you write. God forbid a computer breaks down and you have to sign your name or something.
Hard copy.
Right.
Now, you mentioned something that I'm not familiar with. Chromebook. What is a Chromebook?
Chromebook is basically a small, tiny laptop. All of ours are done through Google Chrome. So their lives are based out of Google Chrome. My students, they blog to me. They'll read a book, and then we have a blog for my classroom, and they'll blog about what they liked about the book or didn't. The kids can respond back. I could be teaching a lesson, and a child could be, I could have a document that I had prepared before class. The kids all, sign in to where I am, and they can comment along, which, in the beginning of the year, you might have a real shy student who never would have ever raised their hand before, but now they can type along and kind of follow with the lesson if they wanted.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, back when we went to school, and we all went to school, we weren't even allowed to have electronics. Like, if you were caught with anything, it was taken away from you.
A calculator was not even
I know.
allowed.
And now they want our kids in, video games and playing on the tab, watching videos and stuff. And I'm like, now it's like, that's a new way to learn, I guess.
It definitely is. But, because kids, that's their entire life, why not tap into it? I use short video clips, and we do brain breaks because, our kids, they're so in tune with the electronics. We'll work for, say 20 minutes or so, and we take a little break, and then we're up and we're moving and we're active, and then we get back because kids aren't as much anymore, So I'm trying to instill that in them as much as I can.
So from the time you started your teaching career to where it is today, what have you seen changed?
So many things. Technology is probably the biggest thing. I mean, we all had, a desktop computer or two in a classroom, and kids would read a book and take a comprehension test on it. Now it drives instruction for so many teachers. So many, of our lessons are designed around, we're doing research reports, and the kids are self-directed. I'll give them an outline of what they need to find, and they're, it's all on them, the learning, which is so exciting to see. But I'd say technology is the biggest change. It really is.
It's almost like Google, think for me.
And
I hope that's harsh, but...
and at times, you can feel that way. And I can understand, why parents and, community would think that. And at times it can be that way. But I feel that so much is still, it is teacher-led. The kids, though, come back with what they're experiencing on their own, and they bring their knowledge just as much as we do, which is really exciting, actually, because they're sponges right now. They're soaking everything up. And having the internet and having, different computer-based learning and things like that, they're coming up with things that I never would have been able to. It's funny, my friends and I, we talk how we ever taught before Pinterest. I don't know if you're familiar with Pinterest. It's revolutionized how I teach and how I do things, and I think there's so many benefits to it. The other thing I would say that has changed a lot in education would be the testing. When I started, we had proficiency testing way back, and I started in 1999. And I had always been in a testing grade. I always taught third or fourth grade, taught that for years, and I've watched the proficiency testing and then the Ohio Achievement Assessments coming through, and then they were about to switch again to the PARCC assessment, which everyone took last year, and I said, I need a break, 15 years, and I need to remember why I got into this, because if I thought that it was so much on me to prepare students and make sure that they were able to take a test properly, I can't imagine what I was doing to kids. So I asked, and that's why I'm now a second grade teacher, and I fell in love all over again.
Get in the bottom floor, you actually can be an impact on them and teach them something.
Right.
So you as an elementary school teacher actually find it very difficult to adjust yourself as an adult with the higher education for these children as well.
It is. Yeah, and what we ask of these children is, at times mind-boggling. Like what we're asking them to be able to produce and, to get on a computer and type an essay when you're 7 or 8. They're great skills, and children will be prepared, and it will be wonderful. But I was a horrible test taker myself. You might have a child that you've taught all year that is brilliant. that can explain things and they can create hands-on and do all these things, but then you put a test in front of them.
They fold.
And you're asking them, right,
Yeah.
in one day, this is supposed to show me what they could do for a whole year. It's almost unfair.
I've just seen what they've done in kindergarten. I mean, when I was in kindergarten,
Right.
it was, let's go play, be a kid,
It's
play with
play-based
Play-Doh.
learning.
They had the letter people. Now, I think if they had the letter people, things would be a lot better. Still,
Right.
I
It
mean,
was
some
fun.
of the old ways worked.
Yeah.
That's how I remembered my letters when I was little.
Right.
I remember the characters. So I think maybe they should also bring it back a little bit of the old school and mix it with the new school.
But it was something, though, that you also were able to watch, correct? So that's where it's difficult, because the technology is what drove that, then also what drives what we're doing today. But you're right, and there are many schools that are trying to go back to play-based learning, especially in kindergarten. There are so many studies of other countries where children, they're out at recess for an hour a day, broken up into increments. I mean, we had 2 recesses growing up. Now we're trying to cram 20 minutes of activity when our students usually are on a computer. They go home, they might be playing video games or on a computer doing homework or something. And that, it's a challenge. They need to get out and explore and be
They're
creative.
kids. I'm sorry,
Yes.
they're 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, and they need to play.
They do.
To
They do.
give you an idea, Janice, I have 5 children.
Okay.
So my youngest is in kindergarten, my oldest is in 9th grade. And, I've seen the changes over the course of time from my 9th grader to my kindergartner. And the 9th grader seems to be doing the best. He seemed to
Okay.
adjust to it all. It seemed like it was more gradually taking place
Right,
each
but
year.
he's seen it all.
Right.
And
And the younger ones, especially my 3rd grader, she's, she comes home and she is just stressed to the gills every day. She's
And
like
she's-
just test after test
it's her
after
first
test.
year in a testing grade.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult for her. And I'm concerned. I mean, as a parent, what is a parent? Do we have any say so in any of this, or?
It almost sometimes feels like you don't. I mean, I'm a
Right.
parent myself. My daughter's she's finishing her 8th grade year, and I've watched her, and she's one who's very self-motivated. She's a great learner, but she stresses herself out because she is so proud of what she does, but then she'll go to take a test, and if she doesn't do well on one, she's crushed, and it's so difficult watching that as a parent, and these high-stakes testing, that's one day. It's capturing one moment, in a child's whole educational career, and then they're then set on this path based on what they're doing on a test. And I know that's not the be-all, end-all, but it is. It does drive a lot for that child, and as a parent, I'm not saying just give into it and just say, well, this is how it is. But there are a lot of ways at home that you can make it easy and reassure her that this is one day of your life, that, we're proud of everything you're doing. And we hope that with education that things are changing, that I think a lot of people realize that these testing, it's not really giving us a true picture of the whole child.
Now, let me ask you this question. Does the testing affect the overall grade?
No, it
for the
does not.
children?
It actually does not. The grades that they see on the report card
Okay.
are very different. That test is just that one snapshot to say, based on all these other children, across whoever else is taking that same test, this is where your child falls. The one thing that it does, some of the testing does drive things like deciding if a child has qualified for gifted education, for example. They'll take a percentile score and say, your child did really well on this. It looks like this could be something that would be indicative of the fact that they might be able to take some extra classes.
question.
Yes, sir.
Now, I have heard, maybe you can clear it up, if a child does not pass the 3rd grade testing, they are held back.
Yes
Is this-
and no.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. That is a great question. And because I taught in 3rd grade the first year that started, with the 3rd grade guarantee is what it is, a child, when they first take that test, if they do not have a passing score, they then have opportunities to take it again before the next school year. They can qualify on that same test again that they can take in the summer, or they can take an alternative assessment. If they still have not passed, it's not that they have completely failed the grade, for example. They may have just not passed the reading portion, so they would have to then take classes again at that same grade level. So say it was a 3rd grade test, for example, and the child didn't pass, they would be taking 3rd grade level reading again. but outside of their normal school, not outside of the school day, but during the school day, outside of, like, say, the other kids are learning at that 4th grade level the next year.
They would go to a different class.
They would, but then it's just a small portion of their day, and they would then have that chance to take that again. And once they've passed, then they move back into the regular education classes.
I don't know. That seems like that's just open grounds for getting bullied.
Absolutely.
And
actually, that's a subject I'd like to touch, but here in a few minutes, the bullying issue
Okay.
is what you see and deal with it being in the
well, because they
war
put so much
zone,
pressure
to speak.
on the kids to pass these tests, not, hey,
Right.
do you know anything? They want you to pass tests. So to the kids, it feels like that's their universe. If, like you were saying, they get so stressed because that's
Yeah.
like I think they're put under that much stress. From whatever sources it comes to, if you don't pass this test, you're nobody. It's what it seems like.
Right.
And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit. For example, my child, I'll use my 3rd grader as an example. She'll come home and she'll have A, B, A, B, A, B, but then the proficiency or whatever they're called now, the test comes home and it's average, below average, maybe just a little bit, or and I look at that and I compare the two. I said, well, how do you have an A in reading, but you have a below average in reading on this test?
Right.
I mean.
You would hope that they would match up a little bit better. And, a lot of school districts, there's a lot of initiatives that, we do have curriculum that is trying to mirror, like, what they would see on a test. And not just preparing them to be test takers, because that's not the idea. But if education's moving in the direction of the new testing is called AIR, in that they ask questions a certain way, before, you'd be asked to explain something. Now it's a 2-part question, and, if you miss the first part, it's difficult for the second, and it is all technology. And, we're trying to mirror, like, what we're doing in the classroom with what they would see on a test. If we're going to give them an assessment, for example, in math or in reading, the questions would be similar to what they would see on a test. Because honestly, when you're 8, 9 years old, if you've never been exposed to how to take a test properly, a lot of the times you're not doing well because of that test taking skill.
Oh yeah, I've seen the homework. Almost all the homework I've seen and helped with is, it's all like read for math. It's like, if John has 6 balls and Mary gives him 3 more.
Right.
What are they left with? Depending on what word, it's either you subtract it, you take it, you add some. It's like most of the time it was just regular adding, subtracting. Now
Right.
it's all, you have to read like a page.
But I'll be honest, though, I wish that when I was younger, I did have because they scared me to death as I got older.
We never saw them.
We didn't, and I'm in my 40s now, so I've been doing this for a long time. I wish that I would have seen that more because, the younger you are and the more you're exposed to it, it just becomes natural. The children are actually understanding. Like you said, it's all in the vocabulary. Should I be subtracting now? Does it make sense to do that? So they're kind of making sense of their educational world. I wish I had more answers to all this. I wouldn't be just, not just an elementary educator, but,
Right.
I'd be doing something much different.
Well,
but
it just seems like still like, and you've seen it, I'm sure, that the kids are being taught, and I just see it, they've just been taught how to take a test. I don't feel like
That's what
they're
I feel as
learning
well. Right.
anything
Yeah.
about history or science. It's just, hey, this is how you pass a test.
And it's hard as an educator to hear 2 parents saying that because, the beginning of every school year, I do a lot of these real quick, and not when I say assessments, it's just their learning style inventories to say, how does each child learn the best for them? And I do not come up with 25 different lessons, but I'm going to have one for my kinesthetic learners. I'm the ones that need something hands-on. And my auditory learners, I'm going to speak a lot, and we're going to be doing hands-on, and we're going to be doing writing and, visual things so that everybody's kind of getting what they need. And, we do a lot now where, it's not your bluebirds and your blue jays and the, kids are saying, oh, this child's always going to be a bad reader and this one's always with the smart kids because the groups change so much with the kids nowadays.
Can we just clone you or just take your mind? Because seriously, a lot of teachers, like I've talked to teachers, and there are a few of them who do truly care. Maybe there's a few kids that remind them of their own children, so that helps them relate specifically. But yeah, I just don't ever hear teachers feel so passionately about it, that they put that extra effort to help as many kids as they can. Like you said, a little hands-on, the visual,
Right.
Well, my experience has been a little different. I can honestly say that the teachers that my children, the educators for my children, have actually been very involved with different programs and different
That's great to
assessments
hear.
and things like that. So on that level, I agree with what I disagree with what you said, but I agree with what you said. And
I'm glad that she's a good teacher. I mean, I've seen teachers that are awesome.
I mean,
they
I
all
really
need to be.
do see them getting involved, but to me, it seems as if their hands are tied with the testing. And I, again, I'm not real familiar with it, even though I have 5 children, because one's doing this kind of testing, the other one's doing this kind of testing,
right.
and one's grades are all A's, but they're below average on all the testing, and it just, again, I just don't get it.
Right.
But you did say something interesting. You said how to prepare for a test, or how to take a test. How do you take a test? I mean, what does that mean exactly?
That's
Eat
a great
your
question.
Wheaties in the morning.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, we do send home some things that, like actually on the test day, about eating a healthy breakfast and getting enough sleep. And, my children, I always give them little mints to have. We call them their smart, their smart pills for the day. We joke because there is some research about peppermint and how it does help stimulate brain activity. And, we do just little things like that. But I always remind my students, and you have to do this at home as well, this is one day of your life. I still love you at the end of the day. No matter what you've done, this is just a test. You got to sit back. We're going to relax. And hopefully, throughout the year, you have been preparing, at home by supporting, which, like you said, you've seen homework coming home. So clearly your child's getting support at home. Reading with them every day. Looking, parents can actually go to the Department of Education and actually look at testing and look at the kinds of questions. And I'm sure that at school, the teachers have been preparing. I might be teaching 2nd grade, but I'm definitely getting my kids ready as they go on next year, because first thing in October, they're usually taking some type of an assessment just to kind of see, well, here's where they are. This is where we need them to go.
Right.
And
it's a direct reflection upon your teaching them.
Right.
If every child goes to the next grade and they're below average, it looks down upon you.
Which is funny. That's so true. I mean, it's a sad reality, but,
right.
We are all teachers are graded, basically.
Right.
In my school district, we have something called SLOs, there's student learning objectives, that we set for each child at the beginning of the year, and they have to meet a certain, target by the end of the year, and we work all year to get them there. And it's the same thing with, like I said, the air testing that they're doing now. To prepare them, it's honestly just exposure to questions that are similar to what they would see. But also, when they take a test, have it in a setting where it is something that's calm for them. I remember when I first taught, every Friday was test day. We take our spelling test and your reading test and your math test, and kind of moving away from that. We do a lot of just, very short assessments to see how children are doing all throughout a unit. And we pick units that the kids are interested in. I'm not going to teach just, out of a book it says I have to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Like right now I have a student who is obsessed with turtles, for example. We're doing a whole unit on turtles because she's gotten everybody excited, and we're working our behavior, working to earn a class pet, a turtle, by the end of the year. It's
right.
really cute,
Sure.
But you have to kind of pick up on what the kids enjoy and try to incorporate that into what you're teaching them so they can take the test properly, which it's a sad reality. But, in my whole life, I kind of believe, I can complain about everything that bugs me all day. It's not going to change everything. Mm-hmm. Testing definitely bugs me. It's my
Nobody
opinion,
likes tests.
Who does? But, if I just complain about it and show my students how negative it is, they're going to pick up on that, and then they're going to feel that way. That this is our reality right now, and we can do things to change it. As a parent, you have voice. You do have a voice. I have a voice as a teacher, and to show, a lot of the fun is being kind of sucked out of teaching sometimes and learning. And if we look at state report cards, for example, the state report for many districts, they dropped from this PARCC assessment. Is it really a good indicator of what a child can do? I don't always believe that.
Right. I don't believe you can measure anyone's intelligence based off a test alone.
I completely agreed.
Just like you said earlier, brilliant child just doesn't do well in tests. I'm horrible at tests. You're probably awesome at tests, right? But I just don't feel you can be measured that way. Maybe half of it, but the other half, I think, like you said, there should be some hands-on or some other way to test a student.
Right.
Do teachers or do schools still do pop-up quizzes? Like, clear your desk. We're doing a quiz.
I know my daughter's does. My daughter just said she had a pop quiz. She'd actually missed a day. She's in theater and she was doing she had a performance. She came back the next day and had a pop quiz, but she did say, she's like, well, the teacher said we would probably have one sometime coming up. So, in second grade, I don't do that.
Okay.
But, that kind of touches on something I was thinking about. We do standards-based report cards. So based on what all the standards are we're teaching our children, we grade them. And like in my school district, they don't have A, B, C, D, F anymore. It's a 1, 2, 3. So we had to really try to then educate parents and ourselves on what does a number mean. Right. Is your school district the same way, Sean?
Well, they have like 50%, 60%, like depending if it's math. And they say, basically they give you, well, you're either 100%, and they just, it still looks like
fall
an
like
A,
a percentile.
Yeah, they're a percentile, but I'm just like, okay, I'm guessing that's kind of like a B or a C,
Right.
Or they have that section where, this stuff is good, but when you get over to it, their average is low. I mean, I'm just like, I can read a car manual better than this thing. It just seems all over the place to me.
Right. And, and that's the other thing. That's another thing that's changed for me. I mean, maybe not for my students, but for me, I've watched grading change, and I've watched, how we grade children and standards and rubrics, and, so many things have changed over the years. Like I said, it's the one job where I can guarantee it will never be the same. Every day is something a little different. Every year is something new.
Or to B, or if I see a bad one, it's like if it's under, what is it, like say 70%, okay, we need to stay above 70%. She's like, well, what letter is that? B.
Yeah, well, in the past,
Guesstimate.
I think, I think that, like an A was arbitrary. A, I've always tried to teach parents, like a C is not a bad grade. A B or an A is you're working above what is expected. A C is right average where you should be, and below, we're going to need some work. The grades could be kind of arbitrary, I think, in the past. And now with the standards-based report cards, we have these power standards to say, okay, this is the overarching theme. We're doing measurement, for example. Then falling under that, there's all these, telling time and, measuring with inches and all these different things. Now it's not so arbitrary. I can say this is exactly what your child needs to work on a little bit more. And this is where I see that they're excelling. And, if for a teacher, it helps drive my instruction a little differently.
No more A minuses or B plus. I'm like, well, it's a B plus, so it's better than just a B.
Right.
There's no more of that.
And I don't know. Up until the last 2 years, I want to say, and I don't remember when this park or whatever it's called started, but I know that up until then, my children, all the testing that they did do, the assessments, they all were above average,
right,
or at average, and their grades were all A's and B's. But as soon as this park or perk or whatever it's called started.
We need to go back. We need to go to school so we can learn how to help our kids.
Right.
And read the paper.
Right.
And that brings up another question I have for you as well. But I don't know how to discipline them or tell them because, okay, your grades are A's, but your test scores are B's, or your test scores are above average, but your grades are D. I don't. As a parent, I don't know how to move forward with it, and I just kind of let it go a little bit right now because I'm trying to understand the whole thing myself.
Mine are young, so I just try. As long as they're trying, effort is everything, especially to me. If you do your best and you fall on your face, hey, you tried.
Right, and that's what I try to, get that message across to my students and my own daughter. That you get up every day and that you did your best. Sometimes these tests are not what, I have children in my classroom that have ADHD. I have children with emotional disorders. I have children with, some severe behavior things. They're off. They took their medicine an hour late that day, for example. I have one, and I've only seen a few true students with ADHD in my 17 years. And I have one this year that if she takes her medicine, that could have thrown off an entire hour of her life. And then that could have brought her grade down, or her score on a test. And I really, really do believe that there's some good points to the testing. It is trying to say, I can see that your child's doing well here and this is where they need some help. But like we've been mentioning throughout our conversation, that it's one day. If your child's grades are usually not so hot and then one day they take a test and they do really, really well, it could be a couple things. One, it could be that, well, maybe they're just kind of getting by, saying, well, I know that I'm fine. I'm passing with B's and C's, and this is fine. And then that test could be a true indicator, to say, wow, they're picking up on things that maybe day to day we're not seeing.
Right.
Okay. Or they could be a really good test taker, or, and I think that a child who's day after day bringing home A's and B's, and then one day bombs a test. My grade point average, I graduated 17th in my class in high school. We were a small high school, but, still.
There was 20 of them.
I was gonna say,
It was 18. Okay, you got me.
It was 18.
Right. But, you give me a test. Oh, I remember taking my placement test for math in college. I had a migraine that day. They put me in like a remedial math in college. I show up the first day and we had to take like a quick assessment. The professor calls me to the side and he goes, "Was there a mistake?" I said, "Oh no, that was really what I got." I said I had a bad headache that day.
I forgot who I was.
I just don't test. Yeah, I think I put the right name down. I'm
Maybe.
not sure.
That's
right?
half the battle at some of these tests. If you know your name.
You get 5 points right away,
Right.
right? You should. And he said, "Why don't you just come back for the final?" So that's the thing. You can be a very bright person, and testing is just not your thing. So
I think emotionally too, because like we've been saying, stress can destroy everything. As soon as you're stressed, and 8, 9-year-old, I mean,
that's hard to watch though. An 8 or
It's- I
9-year-old
know it's-
stressed
it's
over a
very
test.
hard. But
Yeah.
I also think it's like when we were kids, we didn't stress like that.
No.
You
I was
know?
I was stressed if I had to come in before
Maybe
the
when you get
streetlights
to junior
came
high,
on.
in junior high, you should be stressing. You should be like,
Right.
well,
come on.
and that's a good point.
Still be a
The
kid.
stressing issue. Now, I'm assuming that the children know, like, okay, we're having testing on Friday, right?
Yeah.
Do you see during out that week that the children are getting more and more stressed out as the week goes because they're worried about the testing, or are they feeling more and more relaxed because you guys have been working towards the testing?
And to be honest, every child is a little bit different.
Okay.
I'll have kids that, like my gifted kids especially, you can see them like a little bit more stressed, like, okay, I have to take this test. And they're the ones that usually perform. They have nothing to worry about. But
Okay.
that's just their mindset.
They focus.
Exactly. Other kids, they need to know. Like I have a student that we have these morning meetings every day. And she just needs to know what her schedule is for the day. And that takes so much pressure off her. Okay.
Right.
Anything that's going to change, I let her know ahead of time. So every child's a little different with that,
Okay.
and that's a challenge as a teacher and as a parent. You have 5 kids. I'm sure every
Yes.
one of your kids is they have a little bit, there are nuances with them
Right.
going to school and how they interact with everything.
My second grader, he's straight A student. He doesn't bring homework home. He doesn't even do it, and we get notes, and he's still, but I think he's just one of those likable kids where, okay, well, he does good in the
Let's see how far
test.
his
He does
charm
good
can
in
get him.
class.
That was extra
'Cause,
cute. for
Well,
a
like my
reason.
second grader, she does very well because you got to help her with their sight words and math and everything. And when she starts getting, even when we're doing homework, she gets a little frustrated. She's 7 years old. They get frustrated.
Right.
But if you get frustrated, that's when you make the mistakes. Just stop what you're doing, regardless if you're taking a test. Breathe.
Right.
Because then once you start stressing about one little thing, and if it's a timed event, just continue. Come back to it.
Exactly. And that's part of the test taking skills like we were talking about. So definitely.
Let's change the subject just a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about bullying.
I know you mentioned the bullying.
Yes,
I definitely want to touch on
I kinda
that.
wanted to
Something
talk
I'm passionate
that
about.
because I'll be honest with you, and I've talked about it before. As a kid, I was bullied horribly.
Sorry to hear
He
that.
was actually
would
the bully. Don't let
really-
him fool you.
Well, no, I became the bully. We can do that.
That is
that's
extremely
another show.
typical.
That's
Yes.
another story.
Yeah.
But I was bullied horribly, and I know what the way the schools are now. I mean, if you look at somebody wrong, you're getting written. You're
There's
being written
zero tolerance.
up. There's
There really
zero
is.
tolerance, right? So what do you? I mean, and I know you're at the lower levels, but it happened to me. I mean,
I think it's
That's where it
right out
starts.
of
Yeah.
the gates,
Right.
from kindergarten all the way through about 9th grade. I mean, I would literally probably come home crying every other day.
I learned how to fight really good then.
So. I
went
mean,
the wrong way.
do you experience a lot of that? Do you see a lot of that? And what do you guys do to correct that?
Right. Well, first, I'm sorry to hear that ever happened. And as educators, we
Let it out,
go
buddy.
through we go through a lot of training. We've had a couple different programs that have come through to try for us to be able to recognize the signs of bullying or a child being bullied, to teach our own students, if you're being bullied, how to advocate for yourself, or don't be a bystander, that you speak up for someone, and how to teach somebody to say, stop, that's not the right thing to do. But a big thing, especially in the younger grades, is to teach a child when it's bullying and when it's somebody just,
Being funny.
what they think is funny. We have to teach kids that if somebody says to stop, it might be something funny to you. You might be joking with me about something, but when it gets to the point where I'm like, that's kind of pushing it, trying not to get kids to be too sensitive to everything, but
Right.
also to be able to stand up and say, please stop. I really don't like that. And
You have a voice.
exactly, and when we were growing up, especially for boys, I would think it's harder. It's a big man, it's toughen up, no big deal.
Right.
And
Put them in the locker.
yeah, and it's dangerous for kids.
And absolutely, I didn't go home to tell my dad I was bullied all day because I would have been in trouble.
Well, see, I
So
Right.
I
I
got
held it
bullied
all
as
in
well
for years
because I
and
was always
years.
the small one. See, but my dad would, didn't really say anything, so I kind of figured, well, if I got bullied enough where I thought I was actually gonna get hurt, that's when I started getting into fights.
Right.
And usually I was the one who won because I didn't. If I lost, I just keep getting bullied.
Yeah, and
So I made sure I won.
Yeah, and I think all of us, to some extent, have had either some kind of teasing or bullying. And not that it's acceptable, but that's a small part of growing up.
Sure,
I really
absolutely.
believe that it is.
Right.
And I think that we do have to teach children the difference between bullying. That it's a repeated incident. That it's something that is a child's being targeted. It's happening over and over.
You have to bully the
you know.
bullies.
And we have to stand up. And teach the kids that it's okay. To say this is not acceptable anymore. And as a teacher, we have these 5 anti-bullying rules, and one of them is you tell a person at home and somebody at school, and it is my job that I will make sure that something happens, that we do something.
Tell your daddy. Trust me. I'll take care of it, honey.
Send
Don't
it
worry.
home. No. But
On that note,
It's really
on that
important.
note, let's take a break, guys.
All right.
All right. Welcome back. So, Janice, I want to continue talking about bullying, but before we get into that, I would really like to sidetrack a little bit and talk about math.
Oh, all right.
Elementary math.
A parent asking a question about math.
Yes, because I'm going to be honest with you. My third grader comes home and the problem is 36 plus 42, and it's real simple math to us. But the way she starts doing it, and she tells me that I'm wrong for doing it the way I know how to do it, and it's this giant problem,
Right.
and I don't know how to help her out with it.
there's
so
no
I
problem.
Right.
You do what I do. You help her the old way of doing math. You write her teacher a note and say, if you don't like it.
You're
well,
that
that's a good
parent.
point.
No.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
Why does it have to have 10 steps? It only has 2 or 3 steps. Why make it more complicated than it has to be?
Right.
Yeah.
Why
like
is that? What is going on here? Why are they doing that?
This is definitely not the first time I've heard this. I don't know if you guys saw, there was something that kind of went viral on Facebook, a dad who ended up writing a check in Common Core math. So he drew pictures and he, did all these different Common Core type math things. It's a friend of mine actually. And it became huge because so many parents yes, I don't understand. Why are they drawing pictures and what's with these number lines? And, the whole idea behind that, these are my opinions. If I was an expert, like I said
Did
earlier.
they teach you how to do Common Core?
We've had some training
So that's
on
no.
it. We've had some training. The kind of math that we teach before Common Core came about, it's a lot of the kids exploring and trying to figure out what makes sense to them. I might have one problem, 36 plus 42, and I'll have 6 different ways that children are solving it. They have different methods. One is using pictures. One is using a number line. One is breaking apart the number. So they're adding 30 plus 6 plus 40 plus 2. And we're like, add 36 plus 42. That's the old way of thinking. But I'll be honest with you, when I was a kid, you gave me 36 plus 42, and I don't know what to do with that. Now these kids are understanding, well, they know what it means to have 1s and 10s. They understand much better that base 10 system, because without that, they get into math, they're in high school, it's going to make no sense to them. We got through it, we learned it, but did we really? I mean, there's a huge majority of people that, yes, they just they're math minded. But for somebody like me, I needed something like this where I could explore and investigate.
And it gives you different ways to solve problems.
Exactly.
So we're not stuck in the one mindset. This is the way you do
Right.
it, and that's that.
Because remember at the beginning,
It actually helps children. It actually helps children to problem solve different ways.
exactly. And like
Now,
I
I'm
said,
glad you shed that light on that.
yeah, but and like I said earlier, some kids learn by hearing things or by touching or by putting together. Not every kid's going to learn 36 plus 42 the way we were taught.
Right.
Some can. I have kids, they look at me like, a deer in headlights. What are you asking me to do here? But they get 4 plus 2 is 6 and, 3 plus whatever it happens to be, and
Right.
that's fine for them. And I don't discourage that. So if, your daughter can get learning the math the way that you are, for example, teaching her, do it. You know,
That's the way I was taught, and it worked out. I mean,
Right,
I just,
right.
and some of it I do understand, but it just seems like there shouldn't be so many steps, because I've actually read and talked to people that say their kids are having more problems because there's just so much going on to get a simple problem done.
Right.
Like they had a lady, and it went viral too, that did, what was it, 40 minus something, and it's just like 15 steps.
Right, when it should have been, here it is.
Here it is, or they're a much simpler version. And that they're having, I've heard from other parents, not only the parents don't get it, but
Right.
the kids are having a hard time. So I mean,
Right.
when I help my kids, I'll even go old school with it. I'll bring out like their blocks or toys. This way they can still get a visual while they're looking at it.
But that's a strategy.
It's a strategy. At least it helps
need.
them to work. But some of
Exactly.
these things, it's just like, well, if I take all these circles and there's just, I think there's too many ways to do it. They should just have it set where, just limit the ways of doing things. Because then
Right.
because if they stop doing Common Core, which I've heard they might be, because testing has been getting worse, then what are kids going to do? Like, well, I don't know.
Right.
They're not going to know what to do.
But like I said, in education, so many things have changed. In 17 years, I've taught math 7 different ways.
What's
so
your favorite way?
What I'm doing, I love the program I use called Investigations. I do, because it makes sense. It really does for my students, at least. I've seen, the kids, they understand math. They're not just doing math.
Right. They got to understand it.
Yeah, and some kids can do it in 1 step. Some kids need that 5 steps. And my job is really to show them different strategies. You take away what you learn best. Share with somebody else. If the child can come back and, because they have to do 3 things. They have to be able to solve the problem. They have to show a strategy, and then they should be able to explain it. If you can explain something in math to me when you're done, you got it, and I know that.
Well, the teacher should teach the children how to do it so the kids can teach us how to do it.
Well,
That's how
That's
it
right.
works.
That's right.
My
See,
daughter
we're
was like,
failing.
I don't get it.
So
I'm
in
done.
a certain sense, it's somewhat critical thinking.
It completely is.
Okay.
But isn't that, we're trying to teach our children, we're 21st century learners, we're trying to get
Right.
them to be able to think and create and do, and
So in
that's
a
part
step,
of it.
in a way, it's a step in the right direction to a certain extent.
It can
It's
be.
not just this is the way it is and that's it. Well,
Right.
no, it doesn't have to be this way. It could
Right.
be 100 different ways.
Right. And remember, for teachers, just as you as parents, it wasn't, oh, yeah, we get this. This makes a ton of sense right away.
Or you didn't.
But,
Right.
we learn it, and, we keep going.
I actually
Okay,
I
excellent.
feel a little bit better about that now.
I do
Hope
too.
so.
I just need to learn how to do it now.
Right. We should just get together and do
4
this.
plus 4 is 8. Count the
Right.
fingers.
Let's all right. Let's go back. That was great. Thank you very much for enlightening me on that.
Hope I helped a
Let's absolutely. Let's go back to the bullying subject.
I don't want to
is-
stop.
Right. I mean, in a sense.
And
I
you
mean,
stop.
Sorry.
I know what bullying is because I lived through it.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, what is bullying? I mean, what is it?
Right, like just before the break, I had mentioned, bullying is when a child is targeted. One child keeps going back to that same child over and over. There has to be like a repetition, that it's happening on more than one instance. And bullying is not only punching a child and getting in a fight at the end of the day. It can be name calling. It could be going around saying, hey, don't be their friend. It can be cyberbullying. I mean, there is so many
Psychological
different
warfare.
Yeah, I mean, there is just so much that it can, encompass now. I mean, we have, kids at home, they're playing on video games that, they're talking to each other. It happens there. And then sometimes they'll carry back into school. So bullying, really, there's so many different levels of bullying. But teaching our children that, if somebody continually is coming after you, and on the first occasion, if it's something that bothers you, by all means report it. It becomes bullying when it's something that's repeated and a child is targeted and things like that. And like I said, it is definitely our job that we stop that.
Do you find that children? Excuse me. Do you find that children find it hard to tell the teachers or even maybe the parents because they're afraid they may get in trouble because of the 0 tolerance policies that are in place?
And that's something, that we have taught children, that you can report things anonymously. Now, if it's happening to you, we hope that, as a teacher, I think that the first 6 weeks of school are critical. I'm at that point, yes, it's so important to teach kids, and they have to learn to read and write and do math. Don't get me wrong. But relationship building, to me, is so important with those children. I am with them in their awake hours more than sometimes their parents are.
Absolutely,
They
yes.
have to know that they can come to me. I have to, every day we start fresh, no matter what happened the day before, and they have to know that that's something they can do. I have a little girl that she has a lot of emotional issues, and she's like, there's something I need to tell you, but, So I said, write it down for me. So they know that they can write things down. They can write it and leave it when everybody's out of the room and do it anonymously. Because we're trying to take some of that stigma away of like being a tattletale, but we have to teach them at the same time. What is it being a tattletale and when it's not?
Because tattletelling can be a form of bullying, can it not?
Because you can try to get, if you're trying to get somebody in trouble all the time, because then there'll be a target in the classroom that everybody kind of picks on.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that is possible. And to me, you're right. It is so important that kids aren't worried, oh, I'm going to be in trouble, or they're going to find out I told on them and they're going to pick on me more. We have to create a safe environment that they can report what's happening. And that's why we teach our kids, have somebody at home and at school. Because you can go home and tell your parent or, one of your friends' moms, and they can be the one that can help you deal with it. Because at 7, how equipped is a child, to advocate for themselves? That's our job, though, is to teach them how as they get older.
See, I don't know if it's even right what I do, but I try, don't get violent. That's always a last resort. It is. But the way I started getting out of being bullying is took their ammo from them. They would pick on me because I was goofy looking. I had zits or braces, whatever. And is that the best you got? That's how I became a smartass. You take their ammo away from them. You make fun of yourself. Especially when I was younger, because you get the crowd of people. I'm like, is that the best you got? Really, you're wasting my time. And now it flips back to them.
But on that note, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong,
I might
being
be
the educator, Janice,
definitely not the expert.
Are you not also engaging in that pattern of bullying because you're only striking back, but in a sense that's not violent or nasty, but you're striking back in a sense that you're going to continue it going because now this person is getting more upset and angry because you're not crying,
right?
You're not this, so now he's going to progress it.
But see,
or she's going to progress it. Possibly.
At least in my experience, it's if a bully knows, because you said it's always repetitive. They know they're going to get away with it. If you don't let them, without getting violent about it, they're going to go somewhere else. They can get whatever they need from picking on somebody. Because you're basically putting a wall up, but like, it doesn't affect me. So they're failing.
And honestly, sometimes I'm sorry. Continue.
Oh, go ahead. No, you're fine. Stop bullying me.
I'm sorry.
God.
Clearly, interrupting is bullying.
Raise your hand if you want to speak. I'm sorry. That was rude.
But, sometimes that is a method that does work, for some kids. And you kind of have to know, you've been exposed to this bully for a while. You know what they might do next.
Yeah, you know if you take away their ammo, like if they're the kind of bully that likes to make you feel, very tiny and make fun of you because of how you look. If you take that away from them so they can't use it against you, they don't know what to do half the time. They'll either go to somebody else or, they're just going to leave you alone.
You're taking the power away from them is what you're doing. And, but also
bullies need to be
important.
bullied back.
But
they never learned.
I did not condone that. No. But, definitely know that you do have somebody on your side. If it's a friend at school or a parent or another teacher or someone, that is so important. And honestly, so many bullies are people that have been bullied themselves in one form. And it could have been a parent at home. It could be some adult in their life. It could be other kids at school. You never know. And that whole thing that we're all fighting battles we don't know anything about. And it's true. And 7-year-olds are nowadays too, which is sad. But
I've told mine because she can be sensitive, but she asked the questions and we never asked. She's like, but why do they pick on me? Maybe they get picked on and you're the next person in front of them. Maybe, you just don't know a situation, So I was like, maybe they're just playing with you. And since she doesn't always speak up and say, like you said, say no, or that bothers me, they don't know it's bothering you. They just think they're having fun.
Right.
So why don't you, you could say, hey, I don't appreciate that.
Right. And you know what? And sometimes kids want attention and they see that other people are laughing along with something they say. And that's the whole point. And that's something that I do as a teacher. When we start the beginning of the year, I read this book called How Full Is Your Bucket for kids. And, we all walk around with things that happen to us all day.
I'm being bullied right now. I'm sorry. I cannot take this. Stop bullying me, you guys.
Okay, well, guys, that's great. Awesome conversation. I think
we could probably talk about this all day.
Absolutely, we can go on all day about it. But we got to wrap it up.
Okay.
Really, thank you for coming on the show, Janice.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I do have one quick question for you. Now,
after the show, she can teach you how to do math.
Let's just real
quick.
He'll
get 4 + 4, no problem.
What information do you have for a parent to be aware of bullying, or where can you? For me, I'm at home and maybe my child's acting strange and they don't want to tell me because Dad's going to say go in there and kick their butts, and they know that they're going to get in trouble. The zeros. But that does happen.
Right.
I mean, it truly does happen. So just in a quick way sense, what are things that I can do to watch out for bullying, make sure my child's not being bullied?
You already touched on a little bit of by saying, I notice my child's a little off, they're acting differently. Honestly, have a good working relationship with your child's teacher. Whatever you can do, because they see so much of what's happening. We notice when something's off with your child. Be able to talk with them, and to me that is huge. I love when parents can come to me and say, you know what, something seems off, can we put this together? Because it's like a puzzle, we're trying to put together to keep your child whole, every day.
Right.
Keep a good relationship and have open communication at home with your child as well.
Right.
Definitely.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I actually learned something. That's good teacher. I learned. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So my final thoughts on today's topic of education. When I was young, getting an education was mandatory, where teachers taught us to prepare us for life. I'm reminded of something very personal that always troubled me. Growing up, I was constantly bullied. I would literally go home each day and cry. Most of the time I would run home because children would be chasing me, but I always held it in. I was afraid to tell my parents because my father was one of these roughneck mechanic guys and former military and so forth, and I was always afraid to reach out to him to tell him what was going on, and it was very, very difficult for me. So having 5 children of my own, I find that it's very important that the children have an open line of communication with myself. And speaking today with Janice, she really opened those doors up for me to be able to speak with my children about numerous different things, from testing to bullying to Common Core. And I really appreciate her coming on the show. And so we would like to thank our special guest, Janice,
Thank you
for joining the show, and Wing Warehouse for having us. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 2 thumbs up if you got them, and leave your comments below. Stay smart, Americans. See you the next time when I show you my private parts.
Yeah.